Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Caim Circle podcast. Joseph Francis here. I'm so happy to have you with me today. I have a really fun and something a little new. I am inviting on my beautiful friend Megan Marshall today. We are going to be talking about sleep and how to up your sleep hygiene and how to, if any of you are just dealing with like falling asleep, staying asleep with insomnia, I feel like this is such a common thing, right? We have so many of us, we have all of these thoughts and they're just like bombarding us and all that anxiety and all that stress. You would think that it would wear us out and help us sleep, but it does not. It keeps us up and the mind is just overactive and we're exhausted and we stay in this stressed out state because we're not getting any sleep. So she actually helped me recently with my own insomnia. And I was like, oh my gosh, this information is too valuable not to share. And so she is here with me today. Megan has a master's degree in marriage, couple, and family therapy with a focus in trauma and crisis. So really, really cool. And I actually met Megan helping to co-facilitate at a retreat recently, and we just hit it off and we pretty much talk every single day. I am so, so grateful for her and so happy to have her here with me today. So yes, hello, Megan.
Hello. So happy to be here and
So
super
happy.
excited to talk
Yes,
about
I'm so happy to have you here.
it.
So I thought today I would just kind of open the floor to you to like
Mhm.
tell me and tell the audience and tell everyone all of your magic tricks around sleep. I know that you have more in the bag than just the sleep focused ones, but I just want to talk about how people can manage, falling asleep because this is a huge problem for so many people.
Oh, absolutely. It's a really big problem for a lot of people, regardless of your age, or your career or what have you going on in your life. It's a big problem for a lot of people, and especially in our culture with it being so go, go, go all the time and so focused on productivity and constantly being on and all of those things. So one of the things that I found in my work is that one of the things that clients avoided at all costs was silence. Um, because as soon as they had silence around them, their minds just completely exploded with all of their negative thinking, with all of their thoughts, and with their daily grind, right? And so they spent most of their days trying to avoid that silence and trying to avoid that boredom as much as possible. And they would push it off and push it off and push it off. And then they would lay awake at night because they were trying to process all of the things that they had experienced all day long because it was finally silent. And they had no choice but for it to be silent because it's time for sleep. So that is basically like if you find yourself in that constant run, 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 trying to avoid being bored, trying to avoid being, in that silent moment, um, it is entirely possible that what's really going on there is you're trying to avoid the silence and the inner, dialogue that you need to really have. So that can really set you up for some insomnia type patterns and for some difficulty falling asleep. And that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg, so to speak.
Yeah, no, that is that is so, so true, right? And that's why we have these strong addictions to our phones. I mean, not only is it the dopamine release that we get by scrolling, right? But we're avoiding, right? We're avoiding what's happening in our head but unfortunately, when we do that, we're just like forcing ourselves into making even more decisions. And we have this decision fatigue, and it just is like compiling onto everything. It's just like getting worse and worse and worse. Um, Which
Absolutely.
reminds me, I didn't start us off today with our breath, and I usually do that. So I'm going to invite in just one full deep breath. So just go ahead, and no matter if you're driving, definitely keep your eyes open, but just take a moment and take one deep inhale in, fill. And exhale, nice and smooth and slow and gentle. Lengthen out that breath. Relax the shoulders, relax the jaw. One breath, and it makes so much difference. Just that one breath. And that's what I tell people on here all the time is, I mean, three is optimal. Like, try to do three, but just if you can just give yourself that one breath, and sometimes that's all we need to kind of trigger that awareness, that mindfulness that we need, right? To think, okay, I need a minute of silence. I need a minute to actually process my day and what's happening around me, right? So thank you for reminding me of that by saying that, because we're avoiding.
Mhm.
So that's amazing. And you gave me an entire list of different techniques. And I want to go over those.
Absolutely.
So do you have a top, like a favorite that you want to start with?
My all-time favorite is my animal alphabet. The animal alphabet is my favorite just because it's silly. It takes a lot of the seriousness out of, because one of the things about, not being able to sleep is relaxation. And if you're stiff all the time and if you're constantly so stressed out and so worried about, everything being just so, then it's kind of like a recipe for disaster, and you're going to have a hard time sleeping. Once you start to relax, and you actually, that's one of the reasons I love this technique, is because it involves humor, which helps you to really start to take it less seriously, which helps you relax, which helps you to actually like engage in a little bit of childlike, silliness for a minute,
Mm.
and which naturally leads you into sleep because you're able to just fully like be in your body and rest and relax. So it's called the animal alphabet. And basically, it started out because I witnessed a young man who was trying to get into the military, and he was having a really difficult time with breathing and was having kind of a hyperventilation, kind of panic attack situation. And the med people were telling him, if you don't calm down, if you don't get your heart rate under control and your breathing, you're not going to be able to join the military. You're going to be disqualified. And I watched this young man's like, breathing increase as a result of them saying that. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sitting there looking at him, and he is just in a full tilt panic. And I just like, okay. So I went over and sat next to him, and I said, I need you to listen to me. And I'm going to sound like a total crazy person, but it's okay. Just listen to me for just a second. I was like, can you tell me an animal that starts with the letter A? And he was just like, I can't. And I said, okay, aardvark. I was just like, but let's make it a little bit more interesting. Let's say the agitated aardvark enjoyed wearing his aquamarine ascot. And he is looking at me like I'm a completely insane person. And I'm like, I know, just bear with me. And at the very least, I'm entertaining, right, in this moment.
Right.
So then I launched into it, and I started doing all of these ridiculous little sentences with each of the letters of the alphabet. And by the time I got to M, he was actually supplying the answers and writing his own little sentences about each of the letters of the alphabet. And shortly after that, he was able to be cleared and went through, no problem. So what had happened is that using the triune brain model, I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of how the brain works. So pretend like this is your brain. Yeah, this is your brain stem. This is your brain. This is
Mm-hmm.
the first layer that develops when you are very, very small, an infant, actually. It's your lizard brain. It's the very center of your brain. And it governs all of the things that we do on autopilot. breathing, heart rate, all that jazz. The next layer that develops is the emotional layer. So this is where you start learning about emotions and like what feelings are. And then the last layer is your thinking brain, the big brain. The fun thing is about the thinking brain is that it actually doesn't fully develop until you're 25 years of age if you don't have any trauma in your history. Okay, so that kind of kicks it like way up. So this part of the brain really doesn't develop for quite some time. The reason trauma affects it is because what happens in a traumatic situation is you are getting so much information that tells you you're in danger that you flip your lid. You become overwhelmed, your lizard brain takes over, and you become flooded with emotions. Your thinking brain is completely offline. It is literally like a computer that has been disconnected from its RAM unit or motherboard or whatever. I don't even know why I went there because I have no idea what I'm saying, but that's fine. Computer is not my thing. Okay. Anyway, thinking brain comes offline. You're still getting data, right? Like it's not like the world stops when you're in a traumatic event and you flip your lid, like the world doesn't pause. It keeps hitting you with more and more stuff. Yeah. So anyway, so you keep getting this information, but your thinking brain can't process it. So it's kind of like taking like a pad of sticky notes and writing as much detail about what's happening in that moment on all of those sticky notes and sticking them somewhere in a really messy desk. That's what happens to an experience when you're in your fight or flight, when you are actually in your lizard brain and in survival mode. You are not processing data, it becomes shattered. It is stored improperly. And so then when little things happen that remind you of those events, it triggers a recall of that particular problem. But you only get that tiny piece. So you have no idea why you feel the way you do or why you're experiencing that situation at all. Okay? And so it's just these tiny fragments. The reason that this is important when it comes to sleep is because if we allow ourselves to be in a highly stressed state, we are essentially mimicking this flipped lid behavior. We are essentially saying that we are not able to rest, we are not able to relax because our mind is thinking. There's been kind of a disconnect between the communication between the left and the right hemispheres of the brain when this happens. When your thinking brain goes offline, you are literally in survival mode. Your brain hemispheres are not communicating. One of the things that helps to get both hemispheres of the brain talking again is to utilize the left and the right in their different gifts. So using the logic of the list and then using the imagery of the animal and then the silly stuff actually allows you to get the left and right hemispheres of the brain talking again. It brings your thinking brain back online. It allows you to actually organize your thoughts, and then it allows you to ease into a relaxed state so that you can get some sleep.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. So for anyone that is listening and can't see the video, I want to talk you through the hand symbol that she did. So if you look at your hand and you put your arm up, and your forearm is like the brain stem, it's where your nervous system is, right? And then you take your thumb and you put it on the inside of your hand, and that is the amygdala that she's talking about, right? That's the lizard. And that's the part of our brain that we think about and think about that. That's the part of the brain that we are using up until the age of at least 25, if not longer, and that's if we haven't had trauma, right? And then the fingers are all of those emotions. And then when you wrap your fingers around the thumb and you make that fist, right? Those, the tips of the fingers and the knuckles, that's the prefrontal cortex. So like those frontal lobes, where we eventually began making all of those decisions and all of that great stuff. And so like just thinking about that, and if you can see that for yourself, it gives you a really good view of what the brain looks like, how it works, the brain stem, and how it works. And you you just like touched on something that is like really really big for me, right? Because I teach memoir writing, and I teach shadow work through memoir writing. So you're talking about how you know all of these things that are coming up and creating all this chaos in the brain, like all of these thoughts, and how when we're in fight or flight, where all of that is causing us this anxiety, right? The relentless thoughts that don't stop, the fear-based thinking, right? And
Absolutely.
the past is
Mhm.
being triggered or like is triggering our present, right? And
Absolutely.
it can be things that we don't even remember, right? It can be experiences that were formed when we were children that are still affecting us. And that is why, what I offer is such a powerful, powerful tool, because we gain awareness.
Mhm.
And that awareness is kind of like that first step towards like being able to truly process and then release
Absolutely.
all of that junk. What I mean? We don't
Absolutely.
want to be triggered by that. We don't want that eating us up. And the thought that we can take a practice like this,
Mhm.
where, and I know you're going to give us a few more, we'll be able to actually slow all of the chaos down and give the brain something to do, right?
Yes.
Where it's not focused on all of that, it's focused on something entirely differently, and we can actually self-soothe, which is
Yes.
usually something that a lot of us were not.
Yeah.
We never learned how to really truly self-soothe in a healthy way, right?
True.
Well, yeah, we know how to soothe ourselves by having a fit, or by
Yeah.
going to drink or flipping through our phone, or we have all these vices, but having healthy ways
Yes.
to self-soothe, right? And so I love that. Uh, when you first told me it, I was like, I don't know if I like that one's a hard one for me, like, but right
Mhm.
now I'm thinking, like the bumblebee bounced on blue bonnets in a baby blue sweater or something, like
Yes.
just
Yes.
thinking of these random things,
Yes.
and you're just focused on something else enough to soothe yourself
Absolutely.
into tranquility.
Exactly. Well, I mean, because you're telling your brain, you're like, if I can be thinking about something this completely ridiculous,
Mm,
I am safe. There is no bear, right?
yes.
It's one of those things. It's a mind over matter. There's so many different ways to trick the brain into working for you instead of against you.
And that brings up two big points, right? Is so often all that anxiety, the fight or flight is activated because it thinks you're in danger. It's trying to keep you safe. And sometimes we just need to recognize like the awareness part and just say, I'm safe. I'm
Mhm.
safe.
Exactly.
Like I know thank you for protecting me,
Mhm.
but I'm safe.
Mhm. Yep.
And yeah, no, I think that that's just a beautiful thing. Love that. So let's go ahead and talk about another one. So if somebody doesn't like that one, what else is up your sleeve?
Well, before I dive into that, I did want to touch on breathing for just a moment.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I love
because I knew
that.
you would. Um, because you mentioned like scrolling through our phones, right? And you also mentioned using our phones at night when we're trying to rest. And so one of the things that you have to be very careful about when you are using your cell phone on a regular basis, as we all do,
Mhm.
is your posture when you are using your cell phone. So
Mhm.
we are metaphysically, for those of us that follow along those paths, and we talk about the chakras, right? And we have the heart
Yeah.
chakra. We roll our shoulders in to protect our heart chakras.
Yes.
We naturally roll our shoulders in when we're sitting and staring at our cell phones. We are teaching ourselves to curl inward. And then also when we do that, we are constricting our lung capacity. We are actually going to about 2/3 to 1/3 of your lung capacity, the more shrunken you are and the more collapsed your spine is. And when you do that, you're actually telling your system that you are in danger because you are not taking breaths all the way down into your diaphragm and you're not able to get that expansion. So your body naturally puts you into a fight or flight or a stress response because you are breathing with decreased capacity of your lungs. So if you are doing that before bedtime, you are preventing yourself from relaxing because you are engaging in that behavior in that particular crunched position.
Oh my gosh, that is huge information. That is massive. That is powerful to
Yes.
because I definitely thought about for
Mhm.
myself, like curling in, shutting off the heart chakra, and wanting to not only just have better posture and feel more
Yeah.
confident in myself and take care of my anatomy, but I never thought about the fact that I'm actually potentially triggering my sympathetic nervous system. Like that's powerful information.
Yes, ma'am.
Ooh. Ooh. So thinking about that, like, what do you feel like? I'm a side sleeper typically.
Mhm.
I know that we're supposed to be sleeping in savasana. Like, we're
Mhm.
not even supposed to have pillows. Like, really, we're supposed to be flat on a hard surface on our back.
Yeah.
Um, so is that happening like when we curl in like that on our side?
I believe it would be because I do believe that that would restrict our capacity to get full breaths.
Oh my.
That's something to think about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I have been ever since I became a yoga teacher. I've been
Mhm.
Um, I use pillows when I sleep on my side, but when I sleep on my back and I try to fall asleep on my back, I
Mhm.
like remove the pillow and I put one on either side and kind of just like lay.
Yeah.
And yeah, it really does help me, kind of consciously fall asleep with the right kind of thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm really working towards like manifesting my future, and so I want to fall asleep with thoughts that are positive, that are optimistic, that are going to put me in a dream state with a high vibe frequency. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? Not where
Absolutely.
I'm falling asleep in that fear state. And I think
Absolutely.
that's just really important to touch on right there. So many people fall asleep with the TV on and they're watching things like Law
Yeah.
and Order,
Yeah.
or
Yep.
these dramatic shows because they need that background noise.
Yeah.
But you got to think that's what's like getting implanted in
Mhm.
your
Absolutely.
subconscious thoughts while you're sleeping, while you're in like
Absolutely.
those higher frequencies.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh,
So instead of going into it with just, the thoughts in your brain, like unspoken, uncommunicated, unprocessed, unacknowledged even, or avoided, like, don't think about the purple elephant. You're gonna freaking think about the purple elephant. If you say that to yourself, if you say don't think about those things, you're gonna think about those things. So like
yeah.
going to sleep at night, with those fear thoughts in your mind is incredibly difficult to sleep around. So honestly, my second option, my second thought is to really just let yourself create a space. It depends on the age group. It depends on, a person's denomination or their spiritual faith or what have you. It's called lots of different things. So for kids, I call it a monster box. And it's where they actually make a paper box that has a mouth that has like chompy teeth and all of that jazz. And then they take their worries and they write them down before bed and they feed it to the monster and he keeps it at night for them. And then they can go back and look at it the next day if they want to. And if they still want to pick up the worry, they can, or they can just feed it back to the monster and he holds it for them. So, like, that's like one way that you can get thoughts out of your head. Same thing works for adults. If you want to have like a prayer box, for those of us that have that particular, faith guideline, you can actually create a prayer box where you write your prayers, you write it down, and you are actually 100% open and honest with your higher power. Write it down, put it in your prayer box, and your higher power will keep it for you, right? It's a way to process it, to put it down, to actually get it out of your body, to actually like give it a voice, and then also to have a place to put it for a little bit so that you don't necessarily have to carry it.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And just so everybody knows, Megan does this amazing therapy informed art, and we're actually going to be talking about that in the next podcast. More than likely, Megan's going to be on the Caim Circle podcast a lot because we have so many things to talk about. But just like that's so powerful. And I mean, you think about a full moon ceremony or all the different things that we where we're setting an intention and we're burning away the things that we don't want or the, like, what do I want to release? I love the idea of, like when I sit down in a meditative state, when I'll catch my mind,
Mhm.
doing its thing, and like the day comes into my space and I'm like, no. And I just tell it, I just tell my thoughts, I don't need you right now. I'll pick you up when I'm done,
Yeah,
and so that's basically what you're doing. You're like, I don't need this fear right now. I need sleep right now. And
yeah,
I'm going to give it to God, or I'm going to give it to Source, or I'm going to give it to the monster
yeah,
you keep
exactly,
it for me. Um,
exactly. I mean, and in that
yeah, that's
way,
so
you're
cool.
you're also validating it. So you're not making it something that should be that's a shameful thing or something that needs to
Mm,
be avoided. You're saying, no, I hear this and this is important. This is important to me. This isn't something that you don't say to yourself, I shouldn't be worrying about this. That's not
right.
going to change anything. That's just going to make you feel bad about the fact that you're worrying about it. And then you got shame on top of worry, and that's no fun. That just makes it worse. So
Oh
it's
my
like,
gosh.
just letting
Yeah.
yourself actually be like, oh, yeah, that totally makes sense. Write it down, set it aside, and just let it be for a little bit. It helps.
Absolutely. I mean, how often do we just get eaten up by our should and shouldn'ts? We just should ourselves to
Yep.
kingdom
Yep.
come, you know what I
Yep.
mean?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I love that you touched on that as well, because I think that the mass majority of us, our fears are all wrapped up in shame and guilt.
Mhm.
I know mine were and are. It's shame and
Absolutely.
guilt. Like those are the big ones.
Mhm.
Um for being too much, for not being enough, dot dot dot.
Oh, yeah.
And
Absolutely.
instead, and what do I teach? Self-compassion, right? So yeah, 100%. Oh, love it. Love it. That's so helpful. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we've got the animal alphabet. We've got the importance of breathing. We have this really cute and cool, like, different way to, like, put our worries away and validate them, right? Like, uh, I'll be there tomorrow and I can handle this, right?
Yeah.
Um, do you have any others that you want to share today?
Um, One that is a good trick if you if you don't want to go the full tilt expression of the animal alphabet and you
Mm,
just want to do a simple method, you can actually just go through the alphabet and do like an animal, an insect, and a bird for each letter of the
mm,
alphabet. So you can do that as well. So it doesn't have to be like, I don't want anybody to hear these techniques and be like, oh, I don't want to do it just that way. That's the best
right.
part about a lot of this stuff is that a lot of the things that I like to do and help people learn is how to tap back into their inner child. And so
Mm,
like anything that you do that inspires you to kind of branch out and do it in a different way, roll with that. Because basically you're trying to tap into your inner child, you're trying to tap into that inner happiness and that you that was before all that stuff happened that dimmed your shine, right? You're
right.
trying to reconnect with that, and so, like anything that makes you feel freer in that way, go with it and listen to it because it's actually your heart speaking. So, hear
Oh,
that and listen to it. It's important.
yeah. Okay, I love that. So, I mean, I actually like that a little bit more for myself.
Yeah,
Because I'm thinking laying there and just going going through the alphabet and starting with A and going through B with one thing and then going back if you need a second round. It's the counting sheep, right? But
exactly.
with with more imagination, with more like like actively trying to pull out
Yeah,
creative thoughts. It's not
exactly.
just like boredom,
Exactly.
it's interesting in a
Yeah.
way, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
Oh, yeah, I
And
love
it
that.
can lead to journeys too. Like sometimes it can just kind of lead you to like, where you're you're working on these imagery in your head and it just turns into a dream and next thing you know, you just kind of slid into like dreamland. Like I've had a lot of clients tell me that before. Um, but it really and you stumble on it like a letter, like if you are stymied by animals that start with the letter I, just be like, make up something silly and then just move on. Like, don't turn it into a thing where you're beating yourself up because you can't come up with a letter for or an animal for J, you know? Just move on from it and just acknowledge it and just keep going, like just be nice to yourself. It's like
Mm.
the main steps. Be nice to yourself and you will sleep. It's weird.
I love that you said that because I feel like a lot of people that I've worked with in the past, that's like their number one thing, right? Is they're just constantly beating themselves up.
Absolutely.
And this is not another reason or
No.
this is not another opportunity to do that. Like, if you're having a hard time with one of the letters, skip it. You know
Yep.
what I
Yeah.
mean?
Move
Like,
on. No one will
move
know.
on. Oh, this is so beautiful. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to bring you back on again. So for anyone that is listening, be sure to listen to next week because we're going to be diving into creative self-expression and how incredible Megan is. Like I've just literally cried quite a few different times because she was telling me all the different ways that she has helped children, especially, process their trauma, their pain, their worry, their fear, through creative expression. And we are all just children pretending to be adults. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Our prefrontal cortex isn't even developed until we're at least 25 and we're supposed I, I was already a mother of two at that point. You know what I mean? So I'm just
Yep.
like we need to give ourselves a break. We're living this human experience. We're growing up still. No matter if you're 40, 50, 60, you're still just growing up. This is you're so let
Yeah.
yourself be creative, let yourself have fun and be easier on yourself. And that's the number one thing that is going to help us sleep is to stop beating ourselves up.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much for this. This was
Yes.
so amazing. And
Absolutely.
thank you to all my listeners for being here again within the Caim Circle. Megan is also a member of the Caim Circle membership. I want to remind everyone of my community, of my space. It is filled with weekly updates with journaling prompts, affirmations. We've got fitness uh, videos, gym routines, yoga, breathing, and then also the monthly workshops. So much good stuff in there. So if you're looking for a like-minded community, if you're looking for a space that invites in that feeling of sanctuary, like a place to learn, to feel inspired, to get the nervous system reset when you need it, recorded yoga nidra, all kinds of fun stuff in there. Um, Reach out and we'll see if it's the right fit for you. Um, but all of the information is going to be in the bio and the description of the podcast. So thank you again for being here, and I hope everyone has a beautiful and wonderful day ahead. Until next time, namaste.
Namaste.